This is the Pazyryk rug. It is one of the oldest carpets in the world, dating to around the 4th to the 3rd century BC. It is now in the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg, in Russia. The Pazyryk rug was found in 1949 in the grave of a Scythian nobleman in the Bolshoy-Ulagan valley in the shadow of the Altai mountains in Russia near the border to Kazakhstan. The Scythians were an Indo-Iranian people that lived around Central Asia and Eastern Europe in what is now Ukraine and Russia and many of the Central Asian countries as well as the countries in the Caucasus region. Though what I will discuss now is the rug. The Pazyryk rug had more or less been frozen in permanent ice, and it was why it was so well preserved when it was found. It originates probably from either Persia or Armenia, since it is of a Middle Eastern design or style of weaving that evolved there. But even if this rug was made by local hands rather than by the hands of people in the Middle East, it is still connected to the early development of Middle Eastern carpet weaving, which traces its history back to probably around the 6th century BC, as the oldest fragments of this carpet style of weaving date back to that time, though none of those fragments are as well preserved as this Pazyryk rug. Earlier rugs and carpets of cloth for the floor existed before this rug and before this style of making rugs. But they were not of this specific type of weaving pattern. And this type of weaving pattern that the Pazyryk rug represents is of the classical Oriental carpet type, which appears to have been developed in Persia and then later to have spread all around Central Asia and the Middle East and North Africa. A style of carpet that was used in daily life in everything from tribal tents to luxurious palaces in heavily urban environments, and in religious practices and buildings as well. Carpets were more than just functional items. They were symbols of status, tradition, and spirituality in the past. Regarding spirituality, you have had long traditions of using prayer mats in the Middle East, in everything from Zoroastrian prayer mats to the use of prayer mats in Islam, where praying on a clean carpet rather than directly on the dirty ground has been seen as a matter of ritual cleanliness for prayer. Though there have existed traditions within at least Islam where the opposite, praying on the ground as an act of humbleness, has been seen as preferable too. So there has existed differing traditions regarding this. Though most traditions of Islamic practice have been that you ought to use a prayer rug. Also in my personal experience, or rather what I suspect from my personal experience, having seen a lot of prayer gatherings in certain Muslim communities, and having observed the various rugs and carpets that people bring with them to prayer gatherings, I suspect that there does exist an element of status competition with bringing the most intricate and beautiful rugs to these prayer gatherings. And I suspect that this was also true in the past as well, and that this is not a new modern phenomena, where carpets with intricate and beautiful designs were seen as a status symbol. In a religious context, a very intricate and beautiful prayer rug might be used as a symbol to demonstrate one's seriousness regarding the faith. And also in a public context and at home, an intricate and beautifully designed carpet might also be a status symbol for wealth, because a handcrafted, traditionally made carpet with an intricate design is going to cost a lot of money. So having it also demonstrates your own great wealth, as you are willing to pay this amount of money to have this carpet, to have these intricate designs on a carpet. And there are a lot of intricate designs and symbolism on Oriental carpets, such as geometric patterns and colors that often represent specific meanings, and the use of calligraphy on carpets as well, usually with Islamic phrases or statements, or the names of religiously important people, or with verses from the Quran, or with the names of God on them. And this also, of course, interconnects with carpets as symbols of spirituality as well. Though it ought to be said that a lot of the designs on Oriental carpets, both today and in the past, are not inherently religious in nature. And historically, you have had a great variety of motifs on carpets, with everything from depictions of floral motifs, animal motifs, symbolic motifs, and again, as I mentioned before, religious motifs, and even, and this might shock you, erotic motifs on the carpets too, such as with this Arabic Umayyad era carpet from the 7th or 8th century AD, which I had to censor, and which was most probably not for any religious prayer rug use, and much more likely was for strictly private home use. But leaving this carpet aside and discussing wealth and carpets together, carpets have historically been prized trade goods, and during the Silk Road era of the Middle Ages and later, Oriental carpets reached all over the world, including Europe and beyond, and imported Oriental carpets from the Middle East and North Africa were considered symbols of luxury and were often featured in European art and the homes of rich Europeans, where they were often shown off as a statement of wealth. And sometimes they were not even shown off by being on the ground, but sometimes they were nailed to the walls. I've even seen this personally, where the people of the past nailed beautiful Oriental carpets to the wall as to display the beautiful patterns on them and as a display of their wealth and refinement in having acquired these carpets from the faraway Middle East or North Africa. So just like I mentioned before regarding these carpets being a status symbol in the Middle East, they certainly were arguably even more of a status symbol in the European world as well, where they also ended up and were sold. Though, again, I need to state that most Oriental handcrafted carpets have historically been sold in the Middle East and North Africa to the markets of the Middle East and North Africa. And to this day, you can also notice carpet selling of handcrafted carpets in places like the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, Turkey, or the markets in Isfahan in Iran, and in several of the markets of the Arab world. It has been and still is a significant, large trade and skill of craftsmanship to make these Oriental carpets by hand. And UNESCO recognizes carpet weaving and the sites associated with carpet weaving and the selling of these Oriental handcrafted carpets as parts of humanity's intangible cultural heritage. Because this is a tradition of craftsmanship that is important in many countries of the Middle East and North Africa, and that dates back to over 2 millennia in the past. As the Pazyryk rug is an early example of this tradition. A tradition that is older than even the revelation of the Quran by millennia. And this was the Pazyryk rug and the tradition of Oriental carpets in their greater context. And I hope you liked this video. Please ask questions and comment on this video. and I will respond to you as quickly as possible.
Please do subscribe, as it would help the channel spread awareness about the humanities.
اشتركوا بالقناة من فضلكم.